time with you guys. So got NCC, going to use the tabs. Now, some of the tabs, depending on which version you've got, has a white card with some little white black lines on it. If you've got that, you can actually put it as a template over your book and then use a set square to just go around and mark the lines around on the book. But I have noticed the last few haven't, and I am quite comfortable freehanding this anyway. If you do have that, let me know, because I will give you a couple of minutes to get that done. If you don't, we'll just keep rolling. Okay, so as we've got a small group, we can usually roll through this pretty quickly. So first up, we've got these NCC tabs are numbered. You will notice at the bottom, like page 1. This is the first page we're going to be dealing with. After page 1, we actually go to the opposite end of the scales and we'll use page 6, is the intention. So without much further ado, let's get this one going. So first up, we're going to use these black and red tabs. So we've got here, we've got contents, we've got some definitions that'll be going in the back of the book. We've got part 1, part 2, part 3. And then we've got these tabs that'll go across the top. So we'll just work our way through them. So, and I will give you the page numbers. As long as you've got the decent size NCC, it'll be all pretty good. So first up, the first tab I ever put in is contents. Contents will be the first one, and pretty much open up first page inside table of contents. So I will be just sticking this right here, and you will notice these tabs have like a little white line as well as the double-sided tape on the back. So I will be lining this up top corner with that white line at the edge of the page. Like, allow me to show you. One thing, if you do not have some decent nails on your fingers, I'm going to say I wish you the best. I actually usually try and let mine grow for this session. But that's the first thing I'm going to be doing in this book. What we'll do is just tilt that up slightly, because what we'll do is we'll work our way through the side, across the top, then we'll complete across the top, and once we've completed across the top, then we will start using the coloured tabs, because the intention is to have your book end up looking something along the lines of like this. This is where you'll get tonight, because I will take you through every one of these tabs and tell you where I have put them in my book, is the intention. All right, so we've got contents in. Next one after contents we're going to put in part 1. We're going to do part 1, part 2, part 3. So the first one, good old part 1, we're going to be putting that on page 11. Page 11, where it says section 1, and I'm going to position this just so that it sits like so. So always a little bit of a challenge getting these ones in, because these first couple are the only ones we do this way. Every other one I try and work from the back forward, so you can always see your last tab in, and it makes it very easy sticking them in. But I'll just get that in like so, and bang, done. Part 1, page 11. So we've got contents and we've got part 1 on page 11. So they're the first two. Michael's just jumped in nice and early, so he'll be able to catch up very quickly. So after we've done part 1, we're going to go to page 41 for part 2, doing the exact same thing. So page 41. Just fresh book, always a pain to open up. Excuse me. So page 41, peel that tape off the back. I'm lining it up and getting it into position and lining that white line up with the edge of the page and just getting it there so it sits nicely. Bang, done. So we've got contents, part 1, part 2. So contents is on page 1 or page 3 technically. Part 1 is page 11 and page 41 is part 2. So after that one, we're going to put our part 3 in. Now our part 3 is going to go on page 77. Page 77 for part 3. Now, if you miss something or I gloss over it and you're not sure, turn your mic on and ask me a question. You're welcome to do so tonight, especially in a small group like this. So page 77, part 3, just get it lined up. Bang, done. I have done a few of these over the time, and that's usually the hardest bit, is those ones. So we get those ones done, and then we're going to start working our way. We're going to do our definitions, and our definitions is the other bit that I always get set up properly at the start. Main reason being because what I'm going to do is with the definitions, I'm going to set up so the definitions tag sits down the bottom corner here, and there's never another tab going on it. So anytime you don't understand something, you can go to definitions and bang in. So the next one will be definitions. So definitions is the tab that I'm going to be putting in, and I'm going to set it at the bottom corner. And then every other tab that I do on this section will always be one up, just so that this is always kept clear. So this definitions tab, excuse me, is going to be on page 493. 493 is where I have it. So jump on down to 493. Which is where the definitions start. You can see definitions over here. And I'm going to position it right down the bottom corner here. This is where I set my definitions tab. There, and the idea is that no other tab will ever sit over top of that. So it makes it easy to see, easy to access. So that is the first tab for our definitions. Next up, we're going to actually start working through the A, C, E, G, P, and T, which I'm going to start from the top, just so that if you need to look for something alphabetically, that'll make it a bit quicker. And then we'll finish it off with some standard, really important ones for definitions. So I'm going to pop out my A, C, E, G, P, and T, just to make it a little bit more efficient as I'm doing it, as I'm going to do these ones next. As I've got a limited amount of room here. So for the A, I'm literally just over the page on 495. I'm going to put A up the top here, up like so. Then each of these letter ones, I'll work my way down with them. So A is on page 495. 495 for A. When you get A done, then we're going to move on to page 499 for C. 499 is where I'm going to put my C. So again, just lining it up so that it is just below the A on 499. 499 for that C. And then for E, we're going to go to page 503. 503 for E. And I'll be doing exactly the same thing, just lining it up the previous one and just cascading it down for these particular ones. And then I will start working my way back with the definitions tabs. So I'm just lining it up. So I've got my E. Yeah, and while I'm lining it up, I'm also using this line. Usually it's a guide for my edge of the page. So they all stick out the exact same amount. So that's 503 for E. After 503 for E, we're going to go to 509 for G. 509 for G. We're doing the exact same thing with G as I did for E. Just getting it lined up and in. So that was 509 for G. After 509 for G, we're going to go P on 513. P on 513. 513 is P. .503 for P. .513 for P, should I say? 513. After 513 for P, we're going to put 519 for T. 519 for T. 519 for T. Just making sure they line up. 513 for T. Just to double check. Got an easy alphabetical slide there to make it easier to get in. Okay, so we've got 513. Now, sorry, 519 for T. So now we're going to work our way back forward. And this is going to be a little bit easier using our definitions tabs. So what I'm going to be starting off is with the one called structural adequacy, FRL. So structural adequacy, FRL, is right here. I'm going to grab that. I'm also going to grab this blank one. This is just going to make my life a little bit easier for this tab going in. So what I'm going to do, I've got to put structural adequacy on this particular one. What I'm going to do is just use this one without using the tape and just set it here, just to give me my distance, because I'm going to keep that so that my definitions tab doesn't get covered or cover anything else. So I'm just using this as a spacer to set up for my structural adequacy FRL tab. Once it's done, all done. So it's just using that as a spacer. So 519 structural adequacy. Sorry, guys. The cold keeps hanging on. Okay, 519 structural adequacy. After 519 structural adequacy, I'm going to move forward to page 511. On page 511, I'm putting 3 tabs in. So I'm just going to go to 511. And on this, in this section, I'm going to be putting in 3 tabs. It's going to be integrity FRL. Just grab that one, integrity FRL. Insulation FRL. The other one that I'm going to put in is low rainfall intensity area. So we've got low rainfall intensity area. So they're the 3 that I'm putting on this page. So all I'm doing is flattening out the book. Just bring it up like so. So I'm going to put, first up, I'm going to put my integrity, FRL. When we've got multiples on a page, it becomes very easy. You get the first one lined up, then all you're doing is putting the next couple hard up against it. So integrity FRL, installation FRL. And the reason I do it in this particular order, because that also is the order that when we say 60, 60, 60, it's 60, 60, 60. The FRL. And then I'll do my low rainfall intensity area. Like so. So all of a sudden, I've got 4 tabs in the bottom there. So after that one, then I just go to page 509. On page 509, I'm putting in freeboard.
Trevor, I think I'm missing that low rainfall one.
It was right over.
Top
here.
left. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll shut up.
No, mate, that's absolutely fine. Ask the question if you don't know. So next one I'm going to do is freeboard, which is up near there as well. On page 509, I'm putting in freeboard. .509 is freeboard, like so. After 509 freeboard, I'm going to 507 and should be putting in flood hazard level and flood hazard area. So that is flood hazard level and flood hazard area going on page 507. So flood hazard level. And flood hazard area. Like so. Doing all nicely. After 507 with those two, going to go to 505 and going to put in FRL. I've got my FRL, page 505. 505 for FRL, which is right there. Perfect, almost exactly opposite where I put the tab. The last tab after 505 in this little section will be Climate Zone Thermal Design, which is page 499. So Climate Zone Thermal Design, it's 499 that I'm putting that one in. You can tell it's the right page because there's a map of Australia there. You should fill in this tab nicely, this little hole. And that is my definitions tabs. So if I flip over here and go like so, and you can see I've got my definitions down here. I've got a whole lot of little ones, the popular ones, and if I need to find something else, I can get my way through there as well. So that is that little quick section. Now we're going to use the last major bit of tabs, which are these ones across here, to run across the top of the book. So we're going to get those ones knocked over. After that, then we're going to keep on doing the ones across the top. We're going to get all the ones across the top out of the way. So across the top, our first one is going to be this list of amendments. It's the first one we're going to do. It's going to be up here in the top corner. And that's going to be on page 591. So if I go to 591, list of amendments. This is where this one's going. Now, if you want to make things line up a little bit easier, especially later on, especially if you've got a reasonably new NCC, just lift it up like so and bring it over, because you're taking the pressure off that spine. So then all the pages will line up. So I'm going to just put my list of amendments there in the top corner. That's where I start. And now I'm going to start working my way in. So the next one you'll see is history of amendments. History of amendments is going to go on page 575. So 575. 575. So I'm going to want to line this one up here. So what I'm going to do, as soon as I get this peeled and ready to go, I'm going to take the pressure off that spine so the pages all line up with one another. And get this fella on. Just so that they line up and look right when the book is closed. So that is the first two. And you can see that they look very spread out because of the way the spine's working. Okay, so after page 575 for history of amendments, we're going to go to page 551 for schedule 7. Schedule 7 is going to be on page 551. Is where I'm putting my schedule 7. So there we are. Schedule 7, 551. 551 for schedule 7. After schedule 7, going to go to schedule 6. Schedule 6 is going to be on page 547. So not very far along. 547, Schedule 6. So we're just working our way across the top. So Schedule 6, 547. 547 for Schedule 6. After Schedule 6 on 547, we're going to go Schedule 5 on 537. Schedule 5 on 537. 537 is where we're putting in Schedule 5. Schedule 5 on 537. After 537 and Schedule 5, we're going to go Schedule 4. Schedule 4, we're going to put on 521, which is reference documents, 521. Reference documents. Okay. 521 for Schedule 4, reference documents. Right there. After that, we've got Schedule 3, definitions, which is going back to the same page as that definitions tab, which was 493. So you can get to your definition section across the top as well, just in case. So that is 493 for Schedule 3, definitions. Schedule 3, there we go. After Schedule 3, definitions on 493, we're doing Schedule 2. Schedule 2 is going to be abbreviations and symbols, and that's going to be on page 487. 487. 487. Abbreviations and symbols. Schedule 2, abbreviation symbols, 487. 487 for that. After our 487, we're going to put in Schedule 1, but Schedule 1 Victoria. Schedule 1 Victoria. Going to be putting that on page 473. 473, which is the appendix for Victorian editions. So on page 473, I'm going to put Victoria, Schedule 1 Victoria at the top. I'm just going to put this one like so. Then I'm going to put my other Schedule 1, which is for all state and territory editions. We'll be putting that one on page 415. I'll say that again, page 415. that is where we're going to be putting in our Schedule 1 State and Territory appendices 415. So 415, Schedule 1 State and Territory appendices. It gets those little black and red ones across the top done. It should pretty much empty that sheet. We're going to be moving on to this particular sheet, which is marked as sheet 6. We're going to do these coloured tabs. Then we're going to do these white tabs across the top, and then we're going to finish these couple of white tabs there, is where we're headed. So the first one, next one we're going to be doing is this 312, NG efficiency.
Sorry, just to interrupt, going back to that last sheet, freeboard
Yep.
Vic.
Yep. Don't use it.
And
I don't use
yeah, sorry, that one, and then that flood hazard area in Vic. You're not.
Yeah. I just use the standards through there. You're using the same definition anyway.
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Yeah, there is occasionally extra ones. There's also some blank ones. So if there's other things that you want to put in later on, you can also tab in those things as well.
No worries.
All right. So we're going to just start with our coloured tabs across the top. So 312 is going to be the first one we're going to do. We're going to start it back out here at the corner on page 359. 359. We're going to put this in. So on 359, we're going to put energy efficiency at the top, 3.12. Just going across the top like so, and we're just going to work our way across with the colours. So after 359, on 357, we put 311, which was structural design manuals, which was removed from these particular NCCs. And just lining up so they just work their way across. So that was 359 and then 357 for those two. Then we go to 310. 310 we're going to be putting on page 333. So 333 for 3.10. Just trying to get them to line up nicely as we go across. So after 310 on 333, we're going to do 3.9 on 307. So page 307 at 3.9. So 3.9 on 307. After 307 for 3.9, we're doing 3.8, which is health and amenity, on page 273. So 273. Is where we're putting in 3.8 health and amenity. $273 for health and amenity. After 273 for 3.8. But 3.7 fire safety, that will be going in on page 231. 231. We're going to put in fire safety. $231 fire safety. $231 for 3.7 fire safety. So that's 231 for 3.7 fire safety. After that, we're going to go with 3.6 glazing, and that will be on page 219. So 219 is where we're going to put glazing, 3.6. So 3.6 glazing on page 219. After 219, we're going to go to 3.5, which is roof and wall claddings, and that's going to be on page 173. So going to page 173. And 73, which is roof and wall cladding, 3.5 on 173. Like so. Okay, after 173 for 3.5, we're going to do 3.4 framing. And that's going to be on page 151. 151 is where we're going to put 3.4 framing. On 51, 3.4 framing. On 51, 3.4 framing. Okay. After 151 for 3.4 framing, we've got 3.3 masonry, and that's going on page 131. 131 is where we're putting in masonry. Masonry. And 31 masonry, which is 3.3. So after 131, which is 3.3 masonry, we're going to do footings and slabs, which is 3.2, and that is going to be on page 107. So 107 for footings and slabs. So page 107 at 3.2 footings and slabs. After 107, we're going to go to 3.1, which is site prep. Site prep's going on page 89. Page 89 for site prep. .1 site prep on page 89. So that's page 89 for that. And then our last one, 3.0 structural provisions, we're going to match it on the same page. I usually put it, it's the same page as my part 3, just across the top, which is page 77. That's then the last of those coloured tabs. And we're going to move into doing some white tabs across the top. So we'll start at the corner and work our way across again. So with these, I'll be kicking off 2.7. 2.7. That'll be the first one that I'll do off. Now these white tabs will work all the way across the top because I'll start back out here at the corner. So on page 71 is where I'm going to be putting 2.7. Page 71. So it's got a little black line that I'm going to line up with the top of the page. Put it up like so. So the big thing is if I go to part 3, like so, I've got those coloured ones. If I go to part 2, I'll have these white ones. If I go to part 1, I'll have some white ones as well across the top. Just telling about the method. So after 2.7, we're going to do 2.6, and 2.6 is going to go on page 67. Page 67, so I'm going to literally just walk these ones across the top of the page. So there is 2.6 on page 67. After page 67, I'm going to go to 2.5, which is going to be on page 63. Page 63 for 2.5. .5 on page 63. .5 on page 63. Then it will be 2.4 on page 57. 2.4 on page 57. Page 57 for 2.4. Following that, it will be 2.3 on 55. So just over the page, 2.3 on page 55. .3 on page 55. After 2.3 on page 55, we'll have 2.2 on page 49. Page 49 will be 2.2. .2 is on page 49. Okay, 2.2 on page 49. Page 2.1 be on page 45. So from 49 to 45, and we're putting 2.1 on page 45. .1 on page 45. After page 45, we're putting 2.0, which is on the next section. 2.0 will be on page 43. For 2.0. So after page 43 with 2.0, then I do A6. So A6 is going to be on page 29. A6 is going to be page 29. So this is an important one for us because this is where all our building classes are. Page 29, A6, A6. A6. After A6 on page 29, we're going to do A3 on page 23. So page 23 for A5. So A5 on page 23. A5, page 23. Then on page 21, we're doing two. We're doing A4 and A3 across the top. A4 and A3 on page 21. So A4 and A3. Both on page 21. A4 and A3, both on page 21. After page 21, we're going to put A2 on 17. A2 on 17. A2 on 17. And the last one for across the top will be A1 on page 15. A1 on page 15. page 15. Now, I do find with this one, I just try and jam it in really hard against the spine. It usually will go all the way in. There's my A1 on page 15. We've got a couple of white tabs we're going to put in through here. And then we're going to start doing our coloured tabs. So with our white tabs, which are these fellas right here, we're going to just quickly do those because they'll take us no time at all. The first one will be acceptable construction practices. Acceptable construction practices. And I'm going to put that on page 69. So I'm just going to jump to page 69. Now, the one thing I'm going to do with this is start it so that it is up from the bottom of the page by one spacing. So remember how I used this fella before, just to blank out the spot so the definitions tab never gets covered? So this, I'm going to do the exact same. Got that there. Just using that as a guide to, so he doesn't go any further down than he has to. And bang. Then the others will just work their way up from there. So I do use that one occasionally, so I'll just have it sitting to the side there. So acceptable construction practices on page 69. After page 69, acceptable construction practices, we're going to go to acceptable construction manuals on page 23. Page 23 is where we're going to be putting in acceptable construction manuals. Acceptable construction manuals on page 23. And what I'll be doing with this one, because I've already got the height set, I just put this one just above it. Acceptable construction manuals. Then the last three tabs there that are all marked A2.3, A.2.2, A2.1, all three of those are going to go on page 17. So I just make them work their way up numerically, like so. And yeah, page 17 for 3 tabs. Get these ones down, and then we're going to start doing our coloured tabs. So that's what our book looks like already. So now we're going to fill in between here with a whole lot of coloured tabs. And the coloured tabs will correspond to this coloured ribbing across the top there as well. So the first one we're going to be doing in a minute is ceiling exhaust fans and ceiling windows and doors, which are coloured tabs that are on that page on the side there. So you can actually see these two, which is ceiling exhaust fans and ceiling windows and doors is where I will be kicking off. So these couple are going to kick off on page 405. So I'm just going to skip down to 405. page 405. 405, I'm going to put in ceiling exhaust fans and ceiling windows and doors. Now, I think I'm good enough to judge, but if you couldn't judge that distance, you could actually use the spacer so that we don't have anything on definitions, or you can do it by eye and just go like so. Up to you which way you want to do it. But on page 405, I'm putting in my ceiling exhaust fans and ceiling windows and doors. So 2 tabs. Usually do find where we've got 2 tabs or more on a page, we cut through these very quickly. So I've got those 2 in. Page 405. I've got ceiling exhaust fans and I have ceiling windows and doors. And that is page 405. Okay, so then we will just start working our way forward. We should have 1 left on that particular sheet, which would be garage carport insulation. That particular tab is going to go on page 387 on its own. So pop that one out. That's the end of this sheet. So on page 387, I'm going to put this one like so. Garage carport insulation. So after that, we've got some more purple tabs that we've got to go in. So we have a fish around. You should hopefully find page unmarked page 5, and it's got 5 purple tabs running along the bottom there. So these are the ones we're going to use. So the next one is floor R values. Floor R values is the next one we're going to put on. And floor R values is going to go on page 385. So just over 1 page. 385. I'm going to put in my R values. Sorry, floor R values. So I've got floor R values on page 385. After 385, we're going to be putting wall R values, and that's going to be on page 377. So 377, we're going to be putting in our wall R values. On 377, wall R values. Wall R values on 377. And then we'll move to 367. On 367, we're going to put 2 tabs in. We're going to put in our roof R values and wall reflection insulation. And in brackets it says isolation. So roof R values and wall reflection insulation, in brackets isolation. And that is on page 367. 367, 2 tabs. And then we should have 1 left in that particular color, which would be marked as energy rating. So that energy rating tab will go on page 363. So this is 367 for these 2, which is wall reflection insulation and roof R values. And then on page 363, you're going to put in energy rating. So 363, I'm putting in my energy rating. And that will be the last of the purples that I'm installing.